the Grey Hat Beard podcast.
Hello and welcome to show 14 of Grey Hat Beard, the modern workplace podcast where we talk about all things Microsoft 365. I'm Grey, my name's Kevin McDonnell, I'm a solutions architect at CPS.
I'm Al Erdling, solution architect at CPS and Hat.
And I'm Gary Trinder, solutions architect at CPS, and I am Beard.
And neither of you have mentioned that you're also MVPs. You're being very coy this week, which isn't like you must be behaving for our guest, who today is Chirag Patel, our newly minted MVP. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Chirag Patel, Microsoft 365 consultant at Patel Consulting, and also the M365 UK user group organizer. Great to be here. Thanks.
And I like the fact maybe you need a hat, and actually you managed the grey, the hat, and the beard all in one go there. Just
I tried my best.
It is entirely on brand, which is fantastic. So this week we're going to be talking with Chirag about Teams governance in the second part, but we'll kick off in part one with the news. And the first bit of news that slightly embarrassingly, I didn't notice, and I don't think any of us did, but we have hit the exciting milestone of 100 Twitter followers on the Grey Hat Beard podcast. So if you're not following us on Twitter, do go on there. Let's see that number rocket up. Actually, I haven't looked to see how far it's gone, but we had at the beginning of July. Oh, look, we're up to 106 now, which is very exciting. So do give us a follow on there. We post all the show notes along with various other things. So give us a follow and we'll see what happens there. But otherwise, we'll get straight on with the news. And I think we'll start with Al. What have you been up to and what news have you got for us?
So I've been doing a lot with security and compliance this week. A lot of preparation for a client who's going to be migrating to Microsoft 365. One of their key things is the security. And so I've been doing a lot of work with the sensitivity labels and the ability now to be able to bring in sensitivity labels when you're creating a team and actually use those sensitivity labels to control what you can do with that team, whether you can share it externally or not. Is a really nice feature to be able to bring in now. It was released a little while ago, but I don't think it's been widely touted as being something that is there. But it is a really nice feature. And
I think it's just yet general availability, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's been floating around a little while.
It's been floating around for a while, but it merges into the whole process of provisioning a new team really nicely. So when you create a sensitivity label, as you would usually do, once you've configured it with the PowerShell to enable it, you get an extra set of configuration options around if you're applying it to a group or an Office 365 group or team, what can you actually do? And I think what's really nice there is that as well as being able to prevent that external usage in terms of inviting people in, you can also control unmanaged devices out of the box as part of this as well. So there's some really nice features that they've rolled into it. And certainly for the client I'm working with, it was one of the key things that they just went, that's awesome. We want that.
That's quite nice.
That's for people who are on the podcast, we can see actually the functionality in Teams that when you're creating a team, you can select the sensitivity as well through the UI, and that obviously shows, and it's really nice and visible. I think this is really good. It's the two sides coming together again between SharePoint and Teams, because we've been able to do things in SharePoint like have enable categories and things, but it didn't really affect the actual sensitivity of the content that was in it. So now it's, like I say, it's just joining up and becoming much more of a streamlined process, which is always good.
Labeling of sites is relatively recent for SharePoint anyway. You could label content within there, but doing on sites was only kind of earlier this year. I think that's
yeah. And I think this comes, the merge of the labeling from Azure information protection to Microsoft information protection and bringing it all together into one unified labeling process. This just takes it, because we've always talked about labeling as being within the document. The sensitivities are within the document.
Yeah.
This just puts it on the site and just says, right, we've got more stuff that we're putting on the container as well as within the content, which is really, really nice.
Yeah,
So
helps
it's
simplifies it, doesn't it? Yeah.
So it certainly looks on that video that if you label a team, the corresponding SharePoint site gets labeled automatically as well, which is great. How presumably there's nothing for Planner or any other attached things that wouldn't come into it yet.
No, you've got to remember that the sensitivity labels are for the content, so they're for the document. So that if you take one of those documents and you can use the sensitivity labels against the data loss prevention policies and say, you can't share it. If you do email it out, the email will then have that sensitivity label applied to it as well. So it is more around the documents. So Office documents, PDFs. Having
so
those documents
that wouldn't include pages as well in SharePoint.
Don't
think
they're not. No, I mean it's not. It's for the content that you're then going to send out to the perimeter or keep it within the perimeter. So that's really where the sensitivity labels come in, as opposed to what data loss prevention, where you might be saying, actually, we can put a data loss prevention policy.
Yeah.
Stop people pushing that content out. So it's more around the documents.
Yeah, and I suppose the other element to it that a lot of people have done is to let people know this site is confidential. Don't sit there and stare at it in a coffee shop, but then you get that on the site level label. So
yeah, nice. I think again, it's probably governance and adoption. Is that if you're saying we've got sensitivity labels, but it's all hidden away and it's on the documents, you need your members of a team to be able to see that yes, the content within this area is confidential, and it's there and easy to see, because then that should affect the way that you will work with that content, and that's increasing security, increasing compliance. A lot of it is down to the individuals as well.
And one of the key things here is if you're doing a migration, you can set up your teams with the sensitivity labels so that you're then migrating your content from a file share, for example, or from SharePoint 2010, and you're bringing that over and you're putting it into a location that already has that sensitivity label. So you're immediately increasing the security that you have around your content just through the fact of migrating it.
That's great. Any word on the, not to bring the L word into this, but now it's generally available. Is it okay? It's available for these types of licenses, or is it?
That's L word. That's a good question. EMNS, you'll need to be looking at EMNS E3 for this. It's not doing the automated labeling that you'd need for E5 for. But you need the EMNS E3.
So it's a general, and this is what I say to people and always hope it's right, to get the labeling E3, to get automated labeling E5, is there the high level thoughts around it, isn't it?
That's the common rule, yes. Yeah. But
Unless
it is the enterprise mobility and security that you need.
Okay. Yeah.
So it is specifically EMNS licensing that we're talking about here, not just the out of the box E3. If you get Microsoft 365 E3, it's included.
Yeah. Right. Okay. That's good to know. So we've managed to talk about security, compliance, and licensing. So if anyone is still listening and still awake, any other news that you've got there, Al?
So I think probably one that we all put down when we were talking about it this morning is the announcement that they had from Jared Spirito. I can never remember his name.
Spatero.
That's the one around reimagining virtual collaboration, and they dropped a whole new set of features on Teams. And I think the one that really was the eye-catching one was the together mode. Being able to see everybody on your Teams call rather than in a gallery of each individual person with their own background, actually taking them and putting them all in a sort of a classroom kind of situation, so they're all showing it with the same background. And I think that was one of the eye-catching ones. And I know we were playing with this yesterday afternoon. Works really nicely. There's a lot of psychology that they've put in around that to say this will make engagement better when we're doing our virtual conferences, especially with more people there. I think some of the things that were less promoted in terms of on the Twitter sphere, with things like the Tasks app finally landing in Teams, which I know from my perspective I've been waiting for a long time, which is I guess bringing To Do in and merging it with Planner in Teams and then calling it something different, which obviously helps us all in how we describe it. But bringing that in and actually making it much more intuitive to interact with tasks that are personal, that are within Planner, and I've already been using this, and it makes life so much easier rather than having to go into each individual planner. It's really
we
nice.
should probably say we're on the TAP program, one of the latter rings that we have it, that many people probably haven't quite got that yet. Certainly the Task app's coming out this month, they said, so it may not have landed in all tenants yet. So keep
that's
before people get too excited.
It's been waited for a long time, so that's really good. And I think the other one that really caught my eye was, I know we spoke about this a couple of sessions ago, around voice interaction and the Cortana integration with Teams. And it's really interesting when you look at the little video that they put in this blog post, that they made all the announcements, the integration with Cortana to say, join a meeting, share something, phone somebody. It's a really nice little message that I'll wait until you
there we go.
But yeah, it's a really nice integration. I haven't had a chance to play with it, and I'm sure you'll have to train it and learn all the right phrases to actually use it. But it's a nice step forward in terms of how you might interact with Teams.
So I have to admit, I've missed the video and kind of skipped through the text, so you can actually talk to Cortana during the meeting as well.
Absolutely. And
so
one of the things,
and they're releasing tasks at the same time. So can you say, Cortana, create an action for blah blah blah?
Oh, see, you're jumping ahead of the game now. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Cortana's had the interaction with To Do for a long time. And I don't know how fully formed the interaction with Cortana will be in Teams, but it looks, from the little video that they've got, it looks like it's got some quite nice features, like jump to a specific slide, share a slide deck on a Teams meeting, trying to take away some of those things. All right, where's my desktop? Where's my slide deck? Just being able to automate it through voice.
I'd be interested to see how much that takes on. The other one from the text, it says Cortana will be available in the Teams mobile app on iOS and Android, which to me says that it won't integrate on the desktop yet.
Yeah, that's
is that am I reading that right?
Yeah,
which is a very strange decision.
Mobile first.
Yeah, I guess there's an ease of doing things there. And I guess on the desktop, if you do have Cortana enabled, you could possibly get the actions built into that. Maybe that's something we should try a bit more and do a bit more. But I think the one that always resonates with me is during a meeting, trying to take actions for people as easily as possible, and having Cortana pick those up as easily as possible would be amazing. So I'm very pro this. Hoping it sort of moves quickly, and in fact was chatting with a colleague, was it yesterday or the day before, asking for exactly this, and saying from the dev point of view, certainly when I looked a few months ago, there was no way to get to the stream of a Teams meeting, so you couldn't integrate some of the cognitive services bit yet. Looks like it'd be interesting to know whether they've made that more available, or whether they're doing behind the scenes and not letting us touch it yet.
I think with that kind of level of development, if you like, integration, it's the things that will be coming. So the enhancements to the communications APIs into Microsoft Graph, that's slowly coming through. So I think it's keeping an eye out and seeing that when those endpoints become available, which I'm pretty sure they will. They're just kind of lagging at the moment with the transition from Skype to Teams. Once Teams is the only one, then I'm pretty sure that we'll start to see a real increase in what's available for us to hook into.
And Chirag, you saw the announcement as well? Was there any other bits in there that drew your attention at all?
I think there's quite a lot. Obviously, I think for me, is from an end user perspective, I think the together mode is just the one that's really caught my eye, because when I'm on the team meetings, it's overwhelming as it is anyways when you got a lot of people on it. The analogy I use is a bit like the lecture theatre. That view that you get, it's bang on. So I think, great work. We'll see how that goes on, obviously, but certainly making their experience richer. And then, as Al mentioned, the tasks, I think, again, making life easier, right?
Let's hope so.
So yeah, no, that's good. But there's a lot to absorb from that and making it work, especially, certainly with my clients, to how they evolve working with teams. So good stuff.
The together mode is great. I'm wondering if there's anything else in the pipeline, because delivering sessions online is a lot more difficult to do or different to when you're doing it in person. So in person, you're always told to be, keep slides brief, get it back onto you as the presenter, and then you go to online and people just see your presentation, they don't see you as much. So yeah, I see.
I'm distracting ourselves, Al and I, chuckling because we've noticed that the together mode is there and available.
We've got two owls in the back of my beard.
Yeah, Gary's beard on its own, it keeps appearing from the background magically.
So for those who aren't seeing us, we have backgrounds that have grey hat and beard, and together mode is very interestingly picking up some of the static images. So I'm appearing twice. One is static and one is actually me, and I have a very weird hat on.
And facial recognition.
The only thing appearing is Gary's beard in the pictures, so it has a life of its own. So yeah, if you're listening to the podcast, go and have a look at the video, and hopefully be able to see some of the bits there. But interesting to see. I notice only that version has cropped up so far, not the other options that seem to be available in there. But
I think there's been a lot of, I think, the discussions about the Muppets and having that as a background. I think there's a lot of options as to what we could potentially see here.
Yeah,
especially if we can upload our own one. That'd be awesome.
I think I was about to say it'd be lovely to see our own ones and to know how that would work. I think the other bit related to that is you can now have 1,000, or soon we'll be able to have 1,000 people in a meeting, which is slightly terrifying, but I think a great idea for people who are running user groups.
That's a big one.
Great. Yeah,
I was just going to say quickly there, I think it's when you compare that with live events, where you have no real interaction, when you got so many attendees, then that's going to be an interesting, like you said, the user groups, in terms of how you can have that participation, both verbally through the voice as well as the messaging.
But I think we've seen, certainly with our meetings, with Comms First, which we'll touch on later, and had a panel session, the chat down the side is often as engaging as the kind of core chat, core conversation that's going on. So to be able to have those two different routes, I think is really useful, and something that misses out on the live events quite often. So I think for me, what I love most about this announcement is that it's not Teams following what Zoom's done, what others have done. This is something new. This is something they're bringing innovation, and to see together mode there straight away. They're announcing it, and it's there pretty much straight away, which is really, really good to see. So hopefully be interesting what more they've got coming. They're obviously thinking about quite a few different things, but I think that investment, that overall usage of Teams that's grown so much, is driving these new ideas and driving AI with it as well, which I think is great, really interesting. Okay, as we said at the beginning, Chirag, we do tend to waffle on. I think we've got overexcited about that one, but Gary, any news from you at all?
So yeah, we've got a little bit of news from for the Office 365 CLI kind of side. So we're going through a rename. So with the move from Office 365 to Microsoft 365, which Microsoft are really pushing. Obviously, Chirag, you've got a Microsoft 365 user group, not Office 365 anymore. So we're changing the name. So it will change to CLI for Microsoft 365 going forward. So that will be in our rollout. And we've also added a new member of the maintainer team. So we're now up to 5. So we we invited Office Development MVP Rabia Williams, see if she'd like to join, which she accepted. So we have a new member. We're really excited to see how she can help us grow the project, and it's growing every single week, which is great. So yeah, a little bit of news there.
Very nice. I think Rabia's been really engaged with the CLI, hasn't she?
She's been part of the community. She's always been there, contributing through code, also speaking about the CLI as well. So she's really happy to get involved and do things more officially, if you like, even though we're always happy for people to spend their free time working on the project, helping out. But yeah, it's going to be great to see where we go. We've got version 3 coming later in the year. That's already out there in the public domain. So if you want to try it out, you can try that out as well before we actually release that for real. So there's lots and lots of activity going on, which is great.
Very nice. So from my side, I've been, I was going to say knee deep. I think we're getting up to waist deep in a big 2010 to SharePoint Online migration. It's that bit where everything's going wrong, which is always fun, and all those plans that you had are all going out the window and trying to get things back on track. But we've scripted, we've got their stats and things on there, so at least we can see where everything is, and just trying to get that throughput going on there. So that's been helping me lose my hair a little bit more. But I did manage to keep up with some interesting news, which kind of relates to that migration. We made the decision, they had a few 2010 workflows, and we said to them right from the beginning, I wouldn't migrate those. You can put them in Microsoft 365. But I wouldn't, and I'm quite glad I did, because Microsoft have announced that starting in August, all SharePoint 2010 workflows will be turned off in newly created tenants. So if you've got a new tenant, you won't be able to do any 2010 workflows. And then in November, and that's November 2020, they're going to move the ability to run or create any from existing tenants. Now, I personally don't think this is that bad a thing. I think we need to move off these. I don't really think there's any features. I know Mark Anderson was asking if there were any particular features that people still think you can do in 2010 workflows that you can't do in Flow, in a Flow in Power Automate at the moment. But I think it's, sorry, Gary popped into the wrong window there. I think that what I do find a little bit awkward is that timing. That is a pretty short one. If you happen to have migrated and gone, I need to get off SharePoint 2010, I'm just going to lift and shift, move things across, and maybe gradually start looking at those workflows, that gradual is going to be pretty quick. And Microsoft has been pretty vociferous to say that they will give a 2-year life cycle for things that they're turning off. That's not. That's a lot shorter than that. So I thought it'd be interesting to see if they push that out at all.
Yeah, I think also what's interesting is that I think if you look at the Modernization Scanner tool, that's been out for quite a while now. So if anything, proactively, if organizations have been evaluating their workflows and the path to get over to the Power Platform, then it's a good tool to use as well. Obviously, it's been there, giving you a nice Excel report around what's there, what's upgradable, and what's not. So for small organizations, I think, depending on the resources that they have, it's probably a good one. For larger organizations, equally applicable, depending on what the trade-offs they've made, whether to keep them behind or recreate new workflows or systems around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's worth noting that I think some people may have missed this, that the SharePoint 2013 workflows remain supported, although it says deprecated, kind of saying, please don't just move them over to 2013. And there was a fairly big difference between the two. But yeah, be interested to see how much more noise comes from that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they've, as you say, they've got such an aggressive timeline for it. Because they have extended the 2010 extended support, haven't they?
Yeah. So that's extended till March, I think.
Is it March or April? Yeah, it's next year, because that was going to be about the same time. this
Yeah.
autumn that 2010 was going to be out of extended support. So the fact that they're actually ending the support online for the 2010 workflows before they're actually ending the support for 2010 is really it kind of seems the wrong way around.
Yeah, exactly. I guess they're trying to stop people kind of migrating all these 2010 workflows over and thinking, okay, we'll keep it easy and do it afterwards. But yeah, be interesting to keep an eye and see where that goes.
Yeah, because it will inevitably prolong the pain of organizations who did just think, right, we'll just lift and shift our 2010 workflow.
Yeah. And I think Chirag, a great shout out for the Modernization Scanner. We're hoping to have Paul Bullock, who works with Bert Janssen on the modernization tool in a few weeks to kind of talk migration and modernization and bits on that, because amazing tool. And I love the blog post we just had on the screen there that we've got in the show notes. That is a Microsoft blog post talking about a community tool that's used there as if it's part of the recommended things, and I love that integration. I know, Gary, we have with the let's get this right, CLI for Microsoft 365. You know, that's now part of Azure. Great to see Microsoft bringing these community-led things together on there. So really interesting. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I completely agree. It's great to see that Microsoft are seeing the community and what the community can do, using the tools rather than trying to go and build their own tool to just solve the same problem.
Same thing.
For the CLI, we've got the SharePoint framework upgrades. You can go through the documentation, or you can use a tool and simplify that process, and more and more people are moving to the CLI for that purpose, and it's great that people in the community are able to push those out.
So one more bit of news I want to share relatively quickly. A kind of non-Microsoft 365 one, but an interesting article from Forbes talking about the new leaders of our virtual workspaces are emerging. It was a bit of analysis, the Marriott School of Business at Brigham Young University, and they were studying different teams, and what they were finding that the more traditional leaders you think of being extroverted, highly intelligent, kind of stand there, it's the personality that often drives things forward. With the virtual teams, it's actually a little bit different. It's those that take a bit of time, pause and assist. I think, Gary, when we were chatting before, you talk about those with more empathy are the ones that are taking more of that leadership position and getting more focus. And I think you said they're very interesting. There's lots of studies, lots of conversations going on around the pandemic, people working from home, people working in a more virtual way. And I think it's just another one that's really, to me, brought forward different ways of working. I think a positive one. I think one that people are more empathetic, have generally been seen as better leaders, and this seems to be holding true.
Yeah, I think it's a good article in the sense that being in IT, myself, I've worked from doing remote work, working from home quite a lot. So I've been kind of like in this bubble of, well, I already know what remote working feels like, and worked in organizations where it's just, it's been the norm. That's how you do your work. But I can imagine, organizations that have literally gone from no remote working to remote working for the 90% of the company overnight, how people are gonna have to change their attitudes to make sure that when people are working at home, they feel trusted and that they're able to get their job done when there's lots of other things happening around them, like having to be at home, not having childcare, which sounds a small thing, but it isn't. It's difficult to fit in with your working day. You need the trust and to be able to do your work in a different way, I think, and potentially at different times to everyone else as well. And I think we've talked about this in the past about everyone's working times seem to be different now, and we have to adjust to make sure that we accommodate that, and organizations need to accommodate that as well. So yeah, I think it's good to see that there are companies going through big transitions at the moment, just on leadership and way of working.
It is one of those things, isn't it, that everybody is working now. It's a whole different culture. The way we engage with people, the way we actually support people, it's very, very different now than it was. which is a credit to the organisations who have adapted. But it does take a different type of engagement and a different type of support for a lot of people now.
Absolutely. So that was the end of the news. I just wanted to mention a few events coming up. Next week is the Pro Dev conference. So we touched on this, I think, last week and possibly even the week before. But this is those interested in the Power Platform who are also devs. This is a great way of bringing them together. And I think just a reminder, links in the show notes if you haven't signed up. But it's really showing how much you can do with the Power Platform as a full-time dev, not just a power user. So I really want to draw that out. And Chirag, you run the, as you mentioned at the beginning, the M365 UK virtual user group. I think you've got an event coming up. Is it this month?
That's right. Coming up on Wednesday, 4 p.m. It's obviously for the UK community, but obviously given that it's a virtual, so it extends to the wider audience around the globe. So absolutely, it's the second event we're doing it. And it's we got 50 people registered for that event. So great sessions around that. We've got the teams development, basically how to get started by Kirti from India, and then we got Albert from Netherlands doing the sensitivity labels overview and then the news and updates. So two different types of sessions. Come along online.
And the user group's very broad in terms of the focus. Really, is across Microsoft 365. So all sorts of.
It is.
For people like Al and I, who are jack of all trades, master of none, it's perfect.
Yeah, that's precisely it. Because previously, when in the Office 365, in particular around SharePoint, Teams, a lot of it now, because it's not more about the products, but it's more about the services that integrate between the whole platform. So it's wide now, and so constantly looking for some topics, and it is at the same time vast array of sessions that we can have. But main thing is what the audience wants. So it's still early days for the user group. As we go forward, we'll then find out what kind of sessions that we want. So we've got some adoption sessions coming up as well in the user group later in the year. So broad reach.
So as you mentioned, it is a UK focused one, but open to everyone around the world. The only thing is we'll drink more tea and complain about the weather a bit more.
That's it.
That's focused. Excellent. I was going to mention Commsverse, which happened last week. So we had a great Hatbeard panel session. I think given the time, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the future. And the videos are up and available for that. So if you signed up for the upgrade pass, go and have a listen back to those. And Chirag and Al were both talking there, and myself. So we'll share some links to those videos. And also the Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon that Chirag and I spoke at. All those videos are up there now. So they're a huge amount of stuff. Again, I want to go through and have a look. Yeah, I keep going through and trying to recommend stuff, but I just had no time to look through those. But some really good videos up there. Al, you've got the London Power Platform user group coming up.
Yep, we've got that on Thursday. So we've got Rory Neary doing some wow factors in Power Apps. So how to wow people in 5 minutes. So he's got a bunch of those, and we've got Sandy Ursia, who is talking about how to empower yourself with Power Automate. So again, all virtual. Sandy's presenting from, I don't know where she is at the moment. I think she's California at the moment. So
it's probably the most she's stayed in one place, isn't it? At the moment?
I think it is. Yes.
She's still got time to move, though.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Coming from
So we're expecting people from all over the world for that. So that's Thursday.
Just to be clear for anyone listening, that's Thursday the 16th of July, and the Microsoft 365 UK is Wednesday the 15th of July, just in case you're listening to this a week later and can curse yourself for not being able to watch, but there will be another event coming in a month's time. And Gary, the Leeds Power Platform user group, you've got something coming up.
Yep, so this is on the 21st, on Tuesday, and we've got Tom Morgan, Office Development MVP, coming to talk to us about Microsoft Teams development. So it's more of a kind of a general tips and tricks, things that you can do on the platform. So looking forward to Tom sharing his knowledge with us.
Cool. Yeah, I love seeing Tom speaks. That should be very good. I think we'll wrap up there because, again, we've gone over. We're going to have to get those buzzers and timers that we use for the Grey Hat Beards session at Comms First for this. I think that might be the only way. But thank you. I think we'll wrap up on part 1 and very quickly get on to talk about Teams governance and how you can keep yourself organised, ironically. See you after the break.